Hey you guys, it's Justin Critchfield and Michelle Aspsetter here with Team Plus Realty. We've got this exclusive video for you guys. If you're watching it, it's probably because you got an exclusive invite. We really wanted to give you a 6-month prediction on what our real estate market's gonna do. We wanted to give you the unfiltered truth, straight from our mouths, so that you guys could decide what is best for you. So, Michelle, let's kind of recap. Why did 2022 do so well for Utah?
Yes, that was interesting. So last year we saw a 28% increase in 2021. I mean, it was historical. It was crazy. And
no surprise, interest rates were super low.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They lowered them in the 2s, so of course we're going to see that huge appreciation.
Yeah.
Not to mention new builds. Just so people know, since the 1950s on, every decade we've had about 23 million homes being built per decade. Mm-hmm. In 2010 to 2020, we only had 5 million.
Wow.
So of course that's going to create a shortage.
Yes.
That combined with low interest rates.
And then when you add in, Utah had the most people per capita out of anywhere in the nation over the last decade, which caused a huge inventory shortage as well, which also caused prices to surge.
So it's no surprise we went up 28% with all of those factors.
Yes, for sure. So what's really interesting is I can remember just 6 months ago, we would get a listing, we would expect to get multiple offers and we could list it 10 grand above what we were going to list it, no problem. And
bidding wars galore, escalation clauses.
Seriously.
It was like crazy for sellers for the last year. And then all of a sudden,
our phone stopped ringing and it changed really fast. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons why it changed so fast.
First and foremost, you guys know inflation,
yes.
right? Inflation does 2 things. Number 1, it keeps less money in your bank account because you're spending it on groceries, food, gas, all the supplies that you guys need. And second thing is, the Fed obviously had to raise interest rates to try to combat inflation. And the fact that interest rates doubled in such a short period of time, no one saw that coming. Not economists, not us. No one saw them doubling that quick, that fast. And so when you take those factors, that means inventory is going to increase.
Yes, and it's in fact going up faster than any other time in history.
Yes, so fast. 500 plus homes a week on top of whatever's going under contract. So we'll kind of get more into that. But just so you guys know, you're hearing this first here in Utah, states like Boise, Idaho, Arizona, Washington, because we went up the fastest, right? So it's not like 2006, 7, and 8, where Utah was one of the last states to feel it. It's switched this way. We're going to be one of the first states because we went up so fast. So Michelle, inventory levels. We can deal with higher rates if inventory levels aren't going up so fast. So give people kind of the breakdown on inventory from the beginning of 2022 so they kind of get a feel for what's actually happening with inventory.
So January 2022 we had 1,700 active homes on the MLS. That's in all of Utah. 1,700 homes, so low. And fast forward to June 21st, we have 7,000 homes on the market right now. And it continues to go up at about 500 per week consistently. So if it continues, we're looking at by July, August, we're going to have about 10,000 homes on the market.
Which was pre-pandemic levels of inventory. So that's not unhealthy. It's not really a buyer's market, not really a seller's market. Maybe a little bit of a seller's market still. But what happens if it keeps going up? What does that look like?
So if it continues to keep going, by October, we are going to be at 14,000 active homes on the MLS. And drumroll, that is the same level we had in the Great Recession of 2008.
And that's a problem because now it flips to a buyer's market and now prices have got to drop even more for those sellers to be able to stand out to say, hey, buy our home versus other people's
supply and
home.
Demand. So, So what do you think is going to happen, Jess? I mean, what are the experts saying? And Utah is a little bit different. A lot of people have heard us say in our past videos, like, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to see a crash. We're going to see prices keep going up.
We've been guilty of that.
And all of a sudden we're changing our tune. So it's probably confusing to a lot of people. So what do you think is going to happen? What are the experts saying, and why are we changing our tune?
So first things first, what we were saying back then and what the experts are still saying today, and we'll tell you the 2 areas that they're not looking in that they should be looking in. And that is, they're saying essentially there's not a bubble. Prices won't really drop. Yes, it will cool things down, but we don't have a foreclosure crisis happening. It's not like a ton of people are going into default. They've got a lot of equity versus in 2007, a lot of people were underwater. There's no predatory lending, stuff like that. We get all that, right? Like those are what caused the 2007, 8, 9 meltdown.
Yes.
But that's not what's causing this potential meltdown.
Right.
And just so people know, national economic news about real estate is different than Utah's.
100%.
Why is that, Michelle?
So what we were talking about earlier, because we saw such fast appreciation here in Utah, we're going to see fast depreciation. And in markets like,
Midwest, it's not as big a deal, right?
Exactly. Where it didn't go up so much, they're not going to see it go down as much.
And their average home is only $300,000, $250,000.
Yes.
So when your rates double, that's still a much more affordable payment versus Utah, which when your average house is $650,000 and interest rates double, you're going to see why people just simply can't afford that payment anymore.
Yes.
So a couple good news about Utah, and again, you'll hear experts say this, so we wanted to address them. Utah still has a 20,000 home shortage. So you would think just because we have a shortage means buyers still need a place to live.
Right.
But my argument to that is we had a shortage in 2019 and in 2020 before the pandemic hit, and we were only seeing 7-8% appreciation, normal appreciation. We still had a shortage of homes. Where were those people living? They were living with mom and dad, they were living with cousins, they were living in basements, right? Like they were jamming in. And so when prices are going down just because there's a housing shortage, doesn't mean those people aren't still going to stay with mom and dad or friends and relatives instead of going out and buying new houses.
Yep, it's true.
So Michelle, let's talk about what the next 6 months look like.
Hey, let's talk about it. So prices have already dropped between 5 and 10%, and they're likely going to continue to drop another 15 to 20%. It's just
this one makes me laugh the most because we see people like commenting, being like, you don't know what you're talking about, but we've already seen prices drop. Like
it's happening.
Like it's not disputed. They've already gone down. We've already seen prices lower for that 5 to 10% drop.
It's true.
Does that matter? Tell them, what about price range? Because it does vary from price range.
Oh, 100%. So for instance, if you have a $400,000 house or less, it's not going to matter as much because people can afford those easier. So you're not going to see price drops on those anywhere near as much, and you're still going to see possibly multiple offers on those. Now, when you get above the $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 mark, that's where we're seeing stuff sit and bigger price reductions at that point because it's harder to afford.
So yes, just know the different price ranges will have different effects. Overall, will it still all go down? Yes, but maybe some won't go down as much as others.
Yes. So the next thing we are going to see is inventory levels are going to continue to increase.
It's not slowing down, people.
It's not. It's been consistent. 500 a week. We can almost predict with 100%
every week
accuracy.
for the last 12 weeks, 13, 14 weeks without fail.
Yeah, we should put that on Red or Black or something.
I know.
The next thing is rates will increase. The Fed has already talked about doing it a couple more times, and that is going to happen as well.
And the more rates go up, the more prices have to go down.
Yes, it's true. And the next thing is people have so much equity that they can afford to drop their price, similar to how foreclosures impacted prices in 2008.
This one's very interesting because this is kind of like the one thing that we think economists are not really looking at. So if we take 2008 here in Utah, every time a foreclosure would hit, that bank would basically say, look, Michelle, here's a foreclosure, dump it. We don't want to sit on it for a long time. Price it 5%, 10% lower just to get rid of it, right?
Oh, for sure.
So then they would sell, and the next home would pop up as a foreclosure, and they would price it even lower than that one, right? And so the cycle kind of continued, and even the homeowners that were competing against it, yes, they could be priced a little higher than foreclosure, but not a ton higher, and so that's why foreclosures were lowering prices so much in the Great Recession. But the same thing can happen because everyone has so much equity in their house here in 2022. So it's not the banks that we're worried about. it's the investors, it's the neighbors that really need to sell and really need to
Yeah,
move.
really need to get
It's
out.
like, guys, I want as much money as I can, but I have to move. And so because they have $200,000 equity, they can reduce it 10% and be just fine. But that becomes the new comp in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And so that's what's lowering prices. If every seller could hold hands and be like, nobody budge their price, then we wouldn't see prices go down. But it's natural, and guess what? It's okay. People got to do what's best for them, and if lowering their price to get it sold makes it happen, so be it. And that's one of the big things that economists aren't looking at, that is the biggest reason, in my opinion, why prices are going to go down. So we've got a couple scenarios happening, right? Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to try to guide you guys the best we can on what we think is going to happen. So we've got 3 scenarios for you. Scenario number 1, give you a 25% chance that inventory stabilizes around 10,000 homes. Inflation gets under control, right? Interest rates stabilize. Maybe by September, this all happens, and buyer confidence is on the rise, and the Fed's like, hey, good news, we've got all this inflation under control, no more rate increases, we'll slowly start to decrease them in 2023, and because buyer confidence is restored, prices don't have to keep dropping.
So this is what we are hoping for.
Please.
Yes.
But there's equally as good a chance that something really bad might happen.
So scenario 2, and there's a 25% chance that this could happen. Inventory keeps going up to 14,000 plus homes. Inflation doesn't get under control till late 2022 or early 2023.
Which is kind of what the news is saying, right? Everything that we've read is that's kind of when the Fed expects it to be more under control.
And rates will stay high throughout if this happens. And we also would enter into a recession, and buyers' fear goes through the roof. And with fear comes more drawback.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to understand, because this is kind of the second factor that you and I look at, that we're saying why prices are going to drop, and why scenario 2 really has a 25% chance of happening, is because that fear mentality happens. And back in 2006, 7, and 8, we didn't have social media to get our news from. You had to read the newspaper, or you had to watch the news. But nowadays, whatever you click on, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Google, they're going to keep sending you negative articles on what you clicked on. So if you clicked on a negative article about prices dropping, that's all you're going to see. And this fear can spread so quickly with social media that's where you're going to potentially see more and more buyers drop back when recession happens, people get fired from their jobs, right? All those things are going to come into play to where they're like, dude, we don't want to touch home buying right now. Let's stay as far away as we can.
For sure.
Anything else on scenario 2 that you wanted to cover?
Just people would get fired, start losing their jobs, and they would go into default on their home, and we would start to see short sales again, which we haven't really seen in a long time.
And then this problem doesn't just end when inflation ends. It carries into 2023 is not going to be a good year, and maybe 2024 isn't going to be a good year because of potential job losses and overall economic recession and problems. So we don't hope that happens, but there is a legitimate 25% chance that could happen. Okay, scenario 3 essentially is a combination between the two, right? It's not as peachy as option 1, and it's also not as doom and gloom as scenario number 2.
For sure.
It's going to fall somewhere in the middle, and that's basically what we're predicting.
That's what we think is going to happen. We were actually talking about earlier which one, and this is what we really think is the most realistic. So and it's just a combination of the two, and it's hard to say which ones of each scenario will happen. We could go into a recession, but the Fed could lower interest rates.
Exactly. And make it not so bad.
And maybe we won't see short sales, but we're still in a recession and inflation isn't under control. There's so many variables, but this is what we think. So just to summarize what we talked about
today. We're almost there. Good job hanging in this long.
Yes. So we saw a 10 to 25% decrease from the peak of this year, which was March and April.
That's our guess, depending again how bad it is. Just know prices are going to drop somewhere between 10 and 25%. When you read the stats of 2022, you're going to be reading them in 2023 because they're always kind of a year behind, right? And so in 2023, I don't want you guys texting me or emailing me like, they only dropped 10%. Well, yes, but they actually dropped 20% from the peak. Okay, so we're saying from the peak, they've already come down 5 to 10%, and they're likely to come down another 10% from that. People should be watching inventory levels.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The higher inventory levels go up, 12,000, 13,000, 40,000, 15,000, the worse it's going to be for home prices.
Yes, for sure. And again, just as we kind of talked about, the higher priced homes are going to drop in price more than the lower priced homes. So if you have an $800,000 home, the price production on that is going to be bigger than a $400,000 home.
Yep.
So,
and we talked about it, but don't compare Utah to other states,
yes.
especially in the Midwest, especially lower price states.
Yeah.
They might have similar as higher price states,
Yeah.
but it is going to be very state specific this time around.
Yes.
On what's going to happen.
Yes. So I think the ultimate question that people are going to have today is, Michelle and Justin, should I buy now? Should I sell now? So what would you tell them?
Sell and buy. No.
With us.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
It totally depends on what you're looking to try to accomplish. If you own a couple homes and you're just looking to sell at the highest price possible, maybe now might be a really good time to do that if financial is your only reason for doing that. But owning a home or selling a home or buying has so many more variables, so many more factors that determine what you guys should do.
Yeah.
If you're buyers right now, we're looking for good deals and we're seeing them, right? Those homes some of them are dropping 10, 15%, and buyers are still gobbling those up to where you might be able to find some good deals. Don't buy retail, don't buy something that is overpriced, but you could potentially look for those deals. So again, so many different scenarios for so many different people.
Yes.
What I would suggest, reach out to us, call us, email, DM us, text us, whatever. We'll talk about what your goals are, what you're trying to do, and based on that, we can give you guys the best advice possible on which direction you should go.
100%. Thank you guys.
See you later.